Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I just came across something really interesting, really valuable for those of us who lift. It's good stuff to know. I came across it yesterday. I'll probably link it down below. And again, this is from a major cardiology publication. So I'll link it down in the comments below, but we have new interesting data on resistance training. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. You know what, guys? I mean, this has always been a big topic. We always talk about different forms of exercise and what they do for health outcomes. And, one of the things we've always said is, look, we know resistance training, weight training, load-bearing exercises have enormous health benefits. And the benefits that we're finding just keep going up and up and up and up. Like, we have all this data about cancer and everything else. It's actually one of the best things you can do for cancer in terms of physical activity is to weight train at least 2 days a week. And the data for that is overwhelming. Well, one of the topics we always have, though, is heart health, isn't it? This always comes up. We call cardio because it elevates the heart rate, right? And it boosts your VO2 max and everything else. But we've always wondered, how does this compare with different stuff? Well, there was a big review done that suggested something really interesting with strength training. Now, further evidence needs to be gathered, more data needs to be looked at, but the preliminary data that they're looking at is showing that weight training might be slightly better for your heart, meaning reducing chances of strokes and heart attacks might be slightly better than even doing cardio. Which is interesting. That's really interesting, because that's stuff that we talk about all the time. What is it we always say? That for health reasons, yes, strength training should be your #1 form of exercise, right? We know that. But you should still do some cardio. And I'm not saying this doesn't discount cardio, by the way, because all physical activity is good within reason as long as you can recover from it. Physical activity is good for us. Humans are not intended to be sedentary. We don't thrive in a sedentary environment. Being physically active is actually physically good for you. It will make you live longer. It will stave off diseases. But in this case, they looked at just heart health. That's all they were concerned with. It was things like heart attack, stroke, blood pressure, all of these things. And they looked at a number of people, and what they found was that people who were physically active of any form of exercise, they looked at both cardio and what they called static exercise. They called it dynamic versus static. What they mean is cardio or conditioning work versus resistance training. And they found that people who engage in physical activity in general are 30 to 70% less likely to have cardiac problems, just as a general rule of the different forms. So that they have 30 to 70% because they had different demographics they looked at. They had different forms of heart problems, because hypertension and blood pressure and things are one, and heart attacks are another, strokes are another. There's a lot of cardiovascular things they look at. But when looking at just overall heart health, you were 30 to 70% less likely to have heart problems if you were just physically active. And that included all forms of exercise. But they noted that there seemed to be a slightly better, at least in this data, this set of data, there seemed to be a slightly better outcome for people who resistance train versus people who do cardio. If you only look at them in isolation, like you say, okay, who resistance trains and who does cardio? The resistance training group had slightly better heart health as far as just the statistical rate of incidence they had. Well, that's outstanding. Now, that's outstanding. Now, does that mean we have causation automatically? That may not be the case, because a lot of people would argue, people who weight train oftentimes have better lifestyles than other people. So again, correlation doesn't always equal causation, but we have reason to believe there's strong causation there overall, because we know that physical activity improves these things. But by that same token, people who work out, people who lift weights, irrespective of age group, what the reasons you work out for, doesn't matter whether it's for sports, for longevity, for your aesthetics, whatever it happens to be, tend to be healthier. Well, we tend to have better lifestyles. We tend to not smoke cigarettes as often. We tend to not eat junk food as often compared to the general population. So we would expect other lifestyle factors to be in there. But what was interesting is that they did have slightly better outcomes, at least statistically, and it was just a hair better than people who do just cardio. So this is really, really important, because this actually kind of comes back and it underscores and highlights the importance of resistance training. Because that's been a point of contention, because for years Medical doctors used to say cardio was the way to go. We call it cardio for a reason. Do more cardio. You'll be healthier. Your heart will be healthier. And they felt weight training didn't do as much in general. But as more and more research keeps coming out, what have we found? Weight training is actually better for preventing cancer. Weight training combined with not being morbidly obese, being over fat, because actually muscle gain doesn't seem to hurt cancer rates, it seems to help it. So even if you start gaining weight from gaining muscle, as long as your body composition is good, your cancer rates go way down. They go way down, right? We know that not being obese, resistance training, and not smoking cigarettes usually is the three best things that you can do to avoid cancer as a general rule. Like that demographic, people who aren't fat, who work out regularly and intensely with weights, who don't smoke cigarettes, and they don't consume excessive alcohol, right? That person right there, even if they have genetics predisposing them for cancer, is going to have low cancer rates. Their risk of cancer is relatively low. It's still there, even if they're genetically predisposed to it. So that was fantastic when we found all that out. We know that resistance training is the only real training that helps with things like bone demineralization and osteoporosis, right? Keeps your hips in better shape, your back in better shape, everything else as we get older. We don't have as many bone fractures as we get older because we have better bone density. I mean, that's fantastic. That's one of the biggest ravages of aging is more broken bones, more frailty, right? And just muscle loss and muscle wasting as we age is a big deal. Well, then we had other data looking at cognition and memory, and it found that people who had the highest leg strengths up in their 60s had the lowest rates of Alzheimer's. They had the best memory, the best cognition. It was directly correlated to leg strength. So, I mean, we're seeing all these benefits. Lower rates of diabetes. I mean, people who lift weights have diabetes at like 70% of a lower rate than people who don't lift. These are amazing health benefits. Amazing health benefits. But that argument was always, well, does it do that much for heart health? Well, the data coming out now is saying, yeah, it seems to be pretty good. I mean, is it conclusive that it's better than cardio? No, we don't have enough data. This is one big review that's looked at some statistics and found it to be, in their statistics, slightly better than cardio. Now, there might be another review that shows that doing cardio, just endurance work in general, might be slightly better than resistance training. But the fact of the matter is, we now have data, peer-reviewed data, showing that people who resistance train are resistant to heart attacks. They're resistant to high blood pressure. We're resistant to strokes. I mean, this is fantastic news for those of us who train. And, you know, there's been a lot of experts out there, even though I might not like everything he says. You guys remember Dr. Helms kind of did a discussion a while back about that and said, look, high-intensity cardio is well and good, but if you do enough volume on your leg training, you may not really see many real benefits, metabolic or health, from doing higher-intensity cardio because higher volume leg training replicates it already. You know, and that was his opinion as a PhD and an athlete, based upon the data he's seen, that, you know, doing some higher rep leg work can actually give you the benefits of doing HIIT cardio. You'll get the health benefits out of it. That was his opinion, and he said that quite a few years ago. And, you know, here's what we're seeing. We're seeing this data emerging that's just showing that general strength training, you know, this wasn't specific though. This didn't look at specific data and say, what style of weight training did you do? Did they do barbells or machines? Did they do high reps? Did they do low reps? Did they do high volume, low volume? What did they do? They didn't look at any of that. They just grouped everyone together who regularly did resistance training. So it actually included all those as one big group versus a whole other group of people who do just endurance work, right? And it found the resistance training fared really, really well in heart health. So this actually, instead of telling people, oh, this just proves that weight training is superior to everything else, it doesn't prove that. But it is more evidence coming out saying that if you care about your health, weight training is a really, really, really good idea, because we have all this information on diabetes on it. We have all this data now on cancer on it. We have data on Alzheimer's and memory. These are big ones. Bone fractures, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis as we get older. And now we have data emerging showing it helps you resist heart attacks. People need to think about that, because a lot of people say, well, I don't care about living longer. I just want to live a good life while I'm here. Well, that is part of living a good life. In other words, if you get up into your 50s or your 60s or your 70s and you haven't gotten cancer, you still have your memory, you don't have diabetes, you're not getting bone fractures, and you aren't having heart attacks, isn't that quality of life? Isn't that going to help you have a higher quality of life? Isn't that going to help you enjoy your older age more? I mean, it's not just about living longer. It's looking at it and saying, how good do I feel and how good is my quality of life at 60 years old? Right? That's a serious question. We do need to be asking that. That's real critical. And again, stuff like this is showing, you know what? Weight training is all around good for you in the long term. It's not just about will it help you feel good now and be jacked or get girls or whatever it is right now. It's showing that, hey, this is going to help you 30 years down the road. This is going to be 40 years down the road for a lot of you kids. This stuff, if you do this now and you keep doing it, you're going to cut your chances of a heart attack. You're going to cut your chances of cancer. Look at the old people you know now who suffer from that stuff. How would you like to go ahead and make it into your older age without those problems? See, that's awesome. This is more proof that we need to get people under the barbell. That's what it is. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.